I'm going to talk about how we invest, but before I do, let me spend a few seconds recapping when to invest. We think it makes sense to build a foundation first. A foundation has three parts. Number one, have an emergency fund. Number two, be debt free. Number three, have a paid for education. Once all those three parts are in place, then we think we're ready to invest. Now, if you want more information on those three parts, you can find it in our blog. So back to how we invest. Well, we like games, so we're going to talk about a game today. The game is based on a movie, Wreck-It Ralph, and we kind of came up with our own game. It's the sequel. And it's really cheesy, but it's really effective. It's called Build It Billy. Alright, and there's Billy. Say hi to Billy. Hi, Billy. Alright, Billy walks by the dump where Ralph lives, and he sees all these bricks, and Billy just can't help himself. He's thinking, I'm gonna build it, and he just wants to build with these bricks. But the people in the town, they see Billy, and they're like, oh, Billy has no idea. What a noob. Because everybody knows Ralph is there saying, I'm gonna wreck it. Alright? And the game begins. So, in this game, there's three different types of land. There's the country, there's the suburbs, and there's the city. Billy's goal in this game is to build the largest combined set of buildings. So he takes bricks from the dump and he can build in the country, or he could build in the city, or he could build in the suburbs. He doesn't have to build in one place, he can build all over. But Ralph is there watching, and Ralph is thinking, how can I wreck it? And Ralph, he's going to act a little differently in each land. So, in the country, Ralph is lazy. He just wants to take it easy. So when Billy starts taking bricks from the dump, Ralph does his thing. So let's say Billy wants to take 10 bricks to the country. Well, lazy Ralph, he just flicks 3 bricks off. And then Billy, he can build with 7 bricks instead of the 10 that he wanted to carry. The good news is, that's it. Ralph is done. There's no more wrecking. So lazy Ralph flicks a few bricks away, and that's all he does. In the suburbs, Ralph is a troll. At first, Billy, he carries 10 bricks over to the suburbs, and he could start building with all these bricks. Ralph does nothing. He's just watching. And Billy starts building and building and building. But later on, Ralph is going to come by, and he's going to take a big swing and do some damage. And he's going to wreck it. Now the thing is, Billy has no idea if Ralph is going to do a lot of damage or a little damage later, and that's why Ralph is the troll. So again, in the suburbs, Billy's going to build with 10 bricks right away every time he comes to the suburbs, but later on, Ralph is going to do something. He's going to wreck it. Now in the city, Ralph has like multiple personality disorder. So Ralph, he's a lazy troll. He's lazy and he trolls. What does that mean? Well, like in this country, let's say Billy wants to take bricks over, Ralph is going to flick a few bricks off. So Billy can start building with 7 bricks instead of the 10 that he carried over. Not only that, Ralph comes by later and he wrecks it again. So he takes another big swing and does some damage. So our job is to help Billy. And when we look at the scenario right now, where do you think it makes sense to build? I think it makes sense to build in the country, because we know Ralph is more predictable. He's going to do a little damage now, but he's not going to do anything after that. So, in our game, the bricks actually represent money. The buildings that Billy wants to build, those are mutual funds. Don't worry what that means right now. Just know that bricks are money, buildings are mutual funds. Ralph, taxes. That's how we get wrecked. And the 3 different lands, they're just 3 types of investment accounts. Okay? And we'll go into more detail soon. So, in real life, the country is like a Roth. Alright? Don't worry what Roth means yet. Just remember, the country kind of represents this thing called the Roth. The suburbs represent this thing called a 401k or 403b. Don't worry about the letters. Just remember, suburbs is like a 401k or 403b. And the city, that's taxable investing, right? The city's kind of scary. It's kind of tough to build in the city. So today we're going to focus mainly on the country and the suburbs. But another way to say it when we think about Ralph is in the country, it's almost like you can tax me now, but don't tax me later, right? Ralph is lazy. Ralph can tax you with 3 bricks now. He's not going to tax you later. In the suburbs, it's like saying, don't tax me now, tax me later. So Ralph, he's going to troll. He's going to let you build whatever you want to build now, and he's going to come back and tax you later. Then in the city, it's like tax me now and tax me later. That's why it's a hard place to build. All right, but let's look at the country. Okay, we said the country makes sense to start. So, country, known as the Roth. Sometimes it's called a Roth IRA, Roth account, all the same thing. The Roth is just a random guy's last name, right? That's where the name comes from. The Roth IRA, well, same thing, but IRA, all it stands for is an individual retirement account. Now, we can't really buy a Roth IRA. Just like you can't buy a bank account, it doesn't make sense to say, I can buy a Roth IRA. But we can open a Roth IRA, like you can open a bank account. And what we buy are mutual funds inside of the Roth IRA. That's what we buy. And when we do that, it's called a contribution. Now, let's just look at some sentences and statements. So, let's say Billy says, I built a big building. Well, that's like someone saying, I have a growth stock mutual fund. Okay? That's all we know right now. But if Billy were to say, I built a big building and it's in the country, then we know it's like someone saying, I have a growth stock mutual fund in my Roth IRA. So we know that it's going to get treated a certain way. Now, if Billy said, I built 3 different buildings in the country, that's like someone saying, I have 3 different mutual funds in my Roth IRA. And then finally, Billy's saying, oh, all 3 of my buildings, they're safe from Ralph. That's like someone saying, all 3 of my mutual funds in my Roth IRA, they're safe from taxes. Because they're in my Roth IRA, they're tax-free. They're going to grow tax-free. I'm never going to pay taxes on them again. Now let's look at some numbers. Let's say our monthly paycheck is $3,000, right? Now the taxes, that's where lazy Ralph comes into play. We pay income taxes on this paycheck. Let's say $800, all right? So we get to take home $2,200 a month. So that's the money we can use to make a contribution to our Roth IRA. So in other words, Ralph already did his damage, and so out of this $2,200, that's the money we get to put into our Roth IRA. If we wanted to put, let's say, $400, we can do that from this $2,200, and we get to live on $1,800 a month. So that $400 that went into our Roth IRA, that's never going to get taxed again. And whatever else happens after that, that's up to you how you want to live. All right? There's some other rules when it comes to Roth. First rule is that there's a maximum contribution that you can put in. In 2013, one person can only put a max of $5,500 per year. Now, second rule, almost anyone can invest into a Roth IRA. You need to earn something. You need to have a job. You need to be making money to put money into a Roth. And on the other hand, you can't earn too much. So right now, 2013, a single person, once they start making over $112,000, or a married couple making over $173,000, then you can't put in that full amount into a Roth. Third rule, we have to wait until we're 59 and a half to actually take that money out tax-free. Otherwise, we have to pay penalties. Right? But again, we're talking about retirement, so that's the horizon that we're looking at when we're 59, 60, 65 years old. So it shouldn't matter. Alright, so that covers the country. Remember, country is lazy Ralph. He's going to tax you now, but he's not going to tax you later. Now, let's look at the suburbs. Remember, in the suburbs, Ralph is like a troll. So, suburbs, It's also called a 401k or 403b. But what the heck does that mean? Well, these things are just random tax codes. That's all it means. There's no significance to the numbers. All right. Now the company you work for, they can offer a 401k or a 403b, and it really depends what kind of company you work for. So for example, I work for a public company, so I have a 401k. But Jean, she's a school teacher and she works at a school, and they call them 403bs at a school. But the mechanics work the same way. All right, just like a Roth, we can't really buy a 401k, we can't buy a 403b. We can open them. We can open a 401k, open a 403b, and we pick mutual funds in our 401k or 403b. Now let's look at the sentences again. Let's say Billy says, I built a building. Well, that's like someone saying, I own a mutual fund. Now Billy says, I built a building and it's in the suburbs. That means, that's like someone saying, I own a mutual fund in my 401k or 403b. If Billy's saying, I built 3 buildings in the suburbs, that's like saying, I own 3 mutual funds in my 401k or 403b. And then Billy's saying, well, Ralph will come to wreck my buildings later. It's like someone saying, I know the government will tax my 401k or 403b later. Now when we put money into our 401k, that's called a contribution. So let's look at the numbers. Let's say we make the same $3,000 a month in our paycheck. Right away, this is the money that we can use to put into our 401k or 403b. Let's say we contribute 400 bucks. So now, this is called tax deferred, meaning we didn't pay taxes on this money yet. So Ralph didn't do anything yet. So that tax that we have to pay, it's been deferred or put off until later. So in today's world, after we contribute, our taxable paycheck is only $2,600, meaning we pay $693 in taxes, and we get to live on $1,907. When we compare that to the Roth, we can kind of see how they compare and contrast. In both cases, we contributed 400 bucks, but in the Roth example, we contributed that money after we've already paid income taxes. In the 401k example, we contributed the money right away. In the 401k example, instead of paying $800 in taxes, we only pay $693, and we actually get to live on $1,907 instead of $1,800, like we did in the Roth. Now, in the 401k example, Ralph, that $400 that we put into our 401k, Ralph will tax that later. When we take it out, when we're old, when we're 60 years old and we want to take that money out, that's when Ralph is going to tax it. And by that point, we don't really know what the tax rate is going to be, so there's a little bit of unknown there. In the Roth example, that $400 we put into our Roth, Ralph will never tax that money again. Now there's some other rules when it comes to 401ks and 403bs. First rule, just like the Roth, there's a maximum contribution. It's a little higher. It's actually $17,500 per person. Second rule, you can only choose from mutual funds that your employer offers. So in a Roth IRA, we could technically choose any mutual fund with any company, but when we're talking about 401ks or 403bs, we're limited in our selection to whatever our employer picked. The good thing is sometimes our employer will match our contribution. So in this example, let's say Billy's company is going to match the first 3% of his salary dollar for dollar. And let's say Billy makes $40,000 per year. Now how much will the company match if Billy contributes $500 per year to his 401k? Well, 500 is less than 3%, so his company, they're just going to match him another 500 bucks. So if Billy puts in 500, his company is going to put in 500. That's a pretty good return. Now what if Billy wants to contribute $1,500 per year to his 401k? Well, 3% of $40,000 is $1,200, and that's the max that his company is going to contribute. So even though Billy puts in $1,500 of his own money, which he can do, the company's going to match $1,200. Still, pretty good deal. Alright, so we looked at the country and the suburbs, and when it comes to retirement, these are the two lands that we're going to deal with. Now, Let's talk about Dave Ramsey's baby steps real quick. We are big fans of Dave Ramsey, and he has 7 baby steps. We highly recommend them. Baby step 1 is have a starter emergency fund of $1,000. Baby step 2, work your debt snowball. List all your debts, smallest to largest, knock them out in that order. Everything except the first mortgage. Baby step 3, you keep going and you fully fund your emergency fund. That means you have 3 to 6 months of expenses in a bank account just sitting there. Now these 3 steps, you go in that order and you don't move on until you complete the step. So you finish step 1, then you move on to step 2, then you hit step 3 and finish that. Once you do, we think your foundation is done. It's complete. You have your emergency fund, you're debt free, and if you're a student, you have a plan for your education where you're not going to borrow money. After that point, that's where investing comes into play. Baby step 4, 5, and 6, they can happen at the same time in that order. Baby step 4 is you start retirement investing for yourself. You're putting 15% of your income away into retirement accounts. Baby step 5 is you start saving for college for your kids. Baby step 6 is you pay off your home early. Once you do all that, baby step 7 is heaven. That's where you build wealth and give. But let's look at this 15% number. So how do we invest 15% into retirement? Well, let's look at our game, Build It Billy. We have choices. We have the city, which we're not going to do. So the question really is, how much do we put in the country and how much do we put in the suburbs when it comes to retirement? Country is just like the Roth IRA. Suburbs is your 401k or 403b. So let's say Billy makes 40 grand a year. Well, if Dave Ramsey recommends putting 15% of that into retirement, that means Billy's goal is to put $6,000 a year into retirement accounts. Now, what order should he go in? Well, first, we think he should start in the suburbs if he's getting a match. And he should go all the way up until that match. Then after that, it makes sense to go into the country and invest there. If you've maxed that out, then you come back into the suburbs. So your first order of business is you want to get whatever match you can get. But let's say in scenario 1, let's say Billy's company doesn't match his 401k. They don't offer any kind of match on a 401k or 403b. It's one or the other. So what should Billy do? Well, he should go to the country and he should max out his contribution in the country. He should put $5,500 in the country, and Billy's goal is still to get 15% of his income into retirement accounts, which is $6,000. So he should put another $500 into his 401k. In scenario 2, let's say Billy's company matches 3% dollar for dollar. So where should he start? He should start right in the suburbs and get that 3%. So 3% of 40 grand, $1,200. Then what should Billy do? He should go back into the country and put his money away in the country. So he should put $4,800 into the country. That brings him to his $6,000 goal of investing. Scenario 3. Well, let's say Billy's company, they don't match 3%. They only match 1% dollar for dollar. What should Billy do? He should start with step 1 and put 1% of his money away, $400 into the suburbs. Then he should go out into the country, into his Roth IRA, and he can still max that out at $5,500. Now you can see altogether he invested $5,900. His goal is to invest $6,000. So what should he do? He should put another $100 into the suburbs. And if you look at scenario 1 and scenario 3, Billy's kind of doing the same thing. He's putting $500 in his 401k and $5,500 in the suburbs or in his Roth, but for slightly different reasons. And in scenario 3, his company is actually giving him another $400 that they're matching him. So it's a pretty good deal. So that covers investing. It covers everything we know when it comes to Roths, 401ks. We hope it makes sense. Thanks for watching What the Sones Do.